Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of what we like to call SMC Talks. I'm Emily Spore-Chase, an alumna from St. Mary's from the class of 2004, and currently a member of the Alumnae Association Board of Directors. If you're new to SMC Talks, this programming is brought to you by the Alumnae Programming Task Force of the St. Mary's Alumnae Association Board of Directors. The mission of this task force is to plan, promote, and assist with the implementation of programs for alumni focused on enriching alumni's engagement with the college and one another. The SMC Talk speaker series, modeled on TED Talks, was created with this mission in mind. It's made available to the St. Mary's community and features alumni who can provide diverse and unique perspectives through their professional accomplishments, personal interests, or life experiences. The Alumnae Association Board of Directors recognizes the need to expand access to alumni programming around the country, particularly to those of you who do not have an organized club in your area. Committee members wish to bring greater attention to unique, dynamic, diverse alums who make up the St. Mary's alumni community. We hope this programming can bring alumni together in a new way, in order to hear one another's stories, learn from each other, and strengthen our alumni community. I encourage you to nominate a fellow alumna on our website. SMC Talks has a page within the alumni page of the St. Mary's website, where you can register, nominate, and even watch previous events. For the event tonight, as attendees, there's no pressure. Your cameras and microphones are turned off, as this is a recorded event. Once our panel discussion ends, we will have time for question and answer sessions. Therefore, feel free to type questions into the chat feature throughout the presentation. These will not be visible by the other attendees, only those that are on the panel. We know that technical difficulties can occur. Therefore, if you drop off or you get disconnected, not a problem. Please feel free to just rejoin us. Tonight, our SMC Talk topic is focused on career experiences from the St. Mary's Career Crossing Center. We are excited to have with us a panel of 3 amazing alumni, moderated by the Director of the Career Crossings Office at St. Mary's, Stacy Jeffers. I'm going to hand it over to Stacy to help us kick off the panel.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. So as Emily said, I'm Stacy Jeffers. I'm the director of the Career Crossings office here at St. Mary's, and I've been at the college for just over 15 years now, just celebrated my 15-year anniversary this past February, and absolutely love being here at St. Mary's and have 20 plus years of career development and higher education experience. So I've been in the field for quite a while. And my passion is not to only serve the students of St. Mary's, but also alums. And so if you're joining us tonight, as an alum, which I would imagine most of our attendees are, or could be current students, just know that we do provide lifetime services for our graduates. And that's something that when I came to St. Mary's, I was really excited to be able to do and offer those services. So throughout my tenure while I've been here at St. Mary's, I've worked with alums that have ranged all the way from just graduated, which we have one on the panel here tonight, to alums that have been out for 5, 10, 15, 20, even sometimes 30 years from St. Mary's that are at just different, points in their career and their life and need some guidance on all kinds of topics, and happy to be here for you along that journey. So here to help you, and excited to be here with our, as Emily said, our amazing alumni panelists. So and I'm going to do just a real quick, brief introduction, but then also hand it over to each of the panelists to talk a little bit more about their background post St. Mary's and the path that they took. And so we have 3 panelists with us tonight. We have Gretchen Moore. She's class of 1997 and earned her bachelor's in communication studies from St. Mary's. We have Camille Esmacher, class of 2006, earned her bachelor's in business administration. And then we have Lexi Jazwiak. She's class of 2022 and earned her bachelor's in sociology and gender and women's studies. So again, we'll have each of the panelists start by giving a brief introduction, and then we have a list of prepared questions to help us guide our conversations tonight. But as Emily said, feel free to type your questions into the chat throughout the session, and we'll get to those questions as well once we get towards the end of our questions that we have prepared. So I'll go ahead and have Gretchen start us off, then we'll move to Camille, and then we'll have Lexi. So if you each want to give an introduction of yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy, and good evening. I'm Gretchen Moore, and I'm St. Mary's class of 1997. I'm currently the executive director of the Women in Manufacturing Education Foundation, where we support, promote, and inspire women who work in manufacturing. Since graduating St. Mary's 26 years ago almost, I've worked at 11 different jobs, which have taken me to 5 different cities and 3 different states. So job transitions are something I'm very familiar with. I won't list each position and workplace, but my career started at the Ohio Historical Society, working on the Ohio Bicentennial Commission, and it was my job to write about the history of Ohio's oldest barns. So any barn in the state that was more than 100 years old had a biography written by me. So that's how it all started. From there, I've done everything from working in the Ohio Senate on legislation to protect healthcare workers, to running a film festival, to providing technical assistance for minority entrepreneurs, to equity-focused community and economic development work, grant writing, fundraising. I owned an historic theater. I was a fellow with the Obama White House. I ran a fund to support local journalism, and I'm also a brewery owner. So this path that I've taken feels, I like to think of it that it's like a liberal arts education that we get at St. Mary's, where it's a little bit of everything, but it all builds on one another. So it's been a non-linear career path, but the through line has been that my work is always mission driven. So I'm really excited to be here tonight and for the opportunity to share my story and some of the things I've learned along the way.
Thank you,
Hi,
Gretchen.
everyone. My name is Camille Esmacher, and I am the class of 2006. I'm originally from Maryland, and so after graduation, I moved back to Maryland and I sold life insurance. So I felt really lost for the first year out of school, but found a wonderful job through Craigslist, which also seems non-traditional these days, but I worked for a consulting firm for many years, starting in Washington, D.C. as a project administrator, sort of an executive admin, paralegal type of role. When they opened a Chicago office, I volunteered and asked if they had hired an office manager. So they hadn't. And 6 hours later, they said, okay, pack your bags. And several weeks later, my family and I moved to Chicago and spent almost 8 years there. So once we had our third child in 2018, we started talking about where we wanted to be long term and started thinking about colleges. And so we talked about where to move in the country and decided on the Cleveland area, because my husband went to OU, his mom lived in Cleveland. We thought this is going to be a great place to be closer to our East Coast family and also stay in the Midwest because we love the Midwest. So I've been in Ohio for 3 years now. I moved first in April of 2020 and my family moved a month later, but I contacted Stacy in January of 2020, right before the pandemic closed everything down. So talk a little bit about that later, but I am currently the Workplace Solutions Manager at Nestle in Solon, Ohio, outside of Cleveland. I worked at Energizer's R&D facility for a couple of years and then saw Nestle was hiring on LinkedIn. And I managed 3 buildings on our 82-acre campus. And I'm in my 3rd year of the part-time MBA program at Case Western Reserve University. So I have 3 more semesters and I will graduate with my MBA. So my career has been all about supporting others behind the scenes, and that's where I get the most joy. So I'm happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Lexi Joswiak. I just graduated from St. Mary's in 2022. I when I first graduated college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Every job that I had growing up had been with kids, so I just kind of felt fitting that that's kind of where I would take my next steps and kind of figure out what lit my soul on fire. So I started working as a special education teacher at an elementary school. After I graduated St. Mary's, I stayed in the South Bend area. I was born and raised here, so I'm still currently working here. I decided that the special education and teaching realm, the teaching realm in general, just wasn't what I wanted to be doing right now. So I'm actually getting ready to make a huge career change and move to Indy and start working at Charles Schwab here come this summer. So still kind of figuring out what my job life is going to look like and what kind of lights my soul on fire and what I want to do for a career, but I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing more information about your backgrounds and such a diversity like in the past that you've taken, and I appreciate you sharing too, just sort of that thread or that mission is kind of like driving you in your pursuits. So again, we have a list of questions to kind of help guide our conversation. And the first question I want to ask the panelists is to all the panelists, for you to be able to share a little bit about some of those, because you've all made like pivotal, like, transitions like within your career, like, either making big moves, like physical moves to different locations or moving industries, moving roles. But can you talk a little bit about those career transitions and what those were like for you, or what those have been like for you if you're still currently in the transition process? And how did you know that it was time to make those moves? And then when you decided to make the move, like what were some of those resources that were most helpful to you in that process? So we'll go ahead, and whoever wants to jump in and start, feel free to do so. But would love to have all of your perspectives on your own journeys.
I can start. I knew after a couple of years working in an administrative role that I wanted to advance in my career, and I saw an opportunity to move within the same company because I love working for them. And I spent 12 and a half years with them, 5 in DC and then the rest in Chicago. And I knew it was time when it was tricky because I felt really loyal to them and I really loved being there, but I was not finding any more growth. So a couple of things had happened at work, and I got a call randomly from a recruiter. And I said, well, I'm not, and recruiters frequently called me because I was a hiring manager, but he said, oh no, I'm calling to talk to you. And he had called me from a big law firm in Chicago with a huge promotion opportunity. And I said, yes, I'll interview. And then I said, no, I can't interview. But it just started turning those wheels like, oh, I can leave and it's okay. My parents worked in the same careers for their whole lives. So that's what and really my whole family did. So I thought that would be my path. But, and I knew I couldn't get an MBA in Chicago. The circumstances didn't allow it. But when we talked about moving somewhere else, I thought, okay, I can get an MBA. I have to change jobs because my company doesn't have an Ohio office. And so I knew I had to get in touch with the career office because I knew no one in Ohio. So I hustled every day after work. I would come home and I would network. I realized I had neglected my LinkedIn profile because I had never used it because I worked for the same company for so many years. I had no need for it. What is LinkedIn? And so I started connecting with people. I worked with Stacy. She reviewed my resume, my cover letters, my LinkedIn profile, gave me so many good tips. And ever since, I've always told people, even if they didn't go to St. Mary's, go to wherever you went to school. I'm sure they have a career office. Use your resources and connect with people. Networking doesn't have to be a stuffy cocktail hour, which I always thought it was. And I've learned that it's just making these connections and developing these relationships over time where it's not so much, how can I get something out of you right now? It's like you connect and you find things in common to talk about. Anyway, I just every few years now, I'm thinking, okay, is it time for a change? What kind of skills am I looking for? I want to continue to grow. I might look at a job description and say, okay, these are the things I have a gap. I'm going to take some training courses and learn about this. And I always stay close to what St. Mary's is working on too. So.
Yeah, I think, gosh, Camille, those are really good points. I think like Camille, I generally find that I want to move on when I feel like I'm not contributing or being challenged. So for me, it's, that's really how I know when it's time to leave. There's like a little bit of a Mary Poppins feel to it, where it's like, I've given what I've needed to give, and I don't really have much more in my bag of tricks. So as for what's helpful in the process in looking for a job, I think, first of all, making sure that you know yourself and you're really honest with yourself on why you're looking to make that jump. Knowing the difference between being scared or knowing if something doesn't feel right. And so, really being honest and trusting your gut. And I think second, it's really to be ready for opportunities and know that you actually can generate opportunities to help yourself find the right path. Like Camille was saying, making sure that you're networking and you're on LinkedIn. I think some of my job moves probably looked like accidents and they kind of came out of nowhere. But in reality, I was always cultivating opportunities, both at existing jobs to help make my, existing job what I wanted it to be, or for jobs that I didn't know existed yet. And so I think building your network, developing skills, taking on new projects, meeting new people, having a sales pitch, just kind of having your eyes and ears open. I got my White House fellowship after seeing a post on Twitter, and it was the last day to apply, but I had versions of my resume ready. And so I just picked the right version. And a month later, I was headed to California from Ohio. I got another job offer because I ran into a former colleague who said she needed to fill a role at her organization. She wasn't sure who would be a good fit, but I'm always working on my elevator pitch. And so I had that ready to go and delivered it, and she offered me a job on the spot. I actually had worked at St. Mary's. So I was the director of corporate foundation and government relations. And I got that job because I knew I wanted a career change, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I called Stacy at Career Crossings to say I was looking for something, but I didn't know what my next move should be. And she helped me sort through kind of the voices in my head that were trying to talk me in or out of things, and really identify what I cared about and what I wanted to do next. And it turned out that job opportunity was right in front of me at St. Mary's. And so Stacy helped me identify those skills and work on my resume and cover letter. And that gave me the direction that I needed to land the job at St. Mary's. So it's really just, reaching out, making yourself available, and creating opportunities, because, you never know when they're going to arise, but you can also help attract opportunities to yourself.
So kind of along similar lines, I kind of knew that it was time that I didn't want to stay in teaching for longer than I had dipped my toes in it. When I was coming home from work, just feeling the weight of the work that I was doing, I knew that it was good work and I knew that it was making a difference, and I love my kids and I truly love what I do now. And I'm not saying I wouldn't want to come back to it someday, but I got to a point where it was almost like the weight of my work was overbearing the growth that I wanted to have as someone who just graduated college and is trying to figure out what they want their career to be and what they want how to find a profession that you want to wake up for every day and go to work for. And it wasn't that I didn't want to go to work to see my kids. It was what I came home with afterwards. So it just kind of pivoted my thinking from, my whole life I had been working with kids and doing things for kids. And now it was time that I did something to find myself and find what I'm really interested in and push myself out of my comfort zone and do something maybe I'm not super familiar with. Neither of my majors are in business, but I'm going into finance. So it's something that just turned a small, part-time passion of being in the investment club at St. Mary's that really threw me into, why don't I just try my hand at it, because now's the time to do it. And same thing that everyone else said. I mean, plugging into the Career Crossings office, Stacey, was such a huge help for me. I mean, for my special education job, they're so desperate for teachers. I had no interview. I had half of a resume essentially that I put together myself because they were so desperate. They didn't really, require much. So I had kind of floated along with nothing prepared. And when it came time that I was like, okay, I'm going to make this big decision, I don't have anything and I don't even know where to start. So she really helped me from the ground up, build everything that I might need, and nail down that job.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So, and so, I mean, I think too, like, just great. I mean, all of you spoke, about, people, and, the importance of reaching out and tapping into services, people. But Gretchen, I wonder, like, if you could talk a little bit more about that, like what's the importance of finding those mentors, connecting into advisors, like when you're making those big, important transitions in your life and your career. How do you find those people? I mean, of course, I mean, you can find me, pretty easily, like on our website and everything, and sort of, tap into that. But like those people that you find in your life that kind of help you with these decision making, like how do you find those people? And then what are some of those qualities do you think that are good for people to look for in those mentors and advisors that can help you with these transitions?
Yeah, gosh, mentors are so valuable, especially during transitions. I think most of us are working with mentors right now, even if it's not a formal relationship, right? We all have people that we go to and we ask advice and who we trust for their advice. And, a good mentor will bring out the best in you. They'll challenge you to be the very best version of yourself, and they'll help you find pathways that you didn't even know existed. All of the data shows that mentors are, they really do make a difference. And especially for women, the data over and over says that women who are mentored are better prepared for promotions, they have higher success rates, they stay with their organizations longer, and most importantly, they're more likely to mentor other women. And so that, kind of continuing the cycle of mentorship is really important. For me, early in my career, I didn't really know much about mentoring. I kind of thought I was supposed to figure things out on my own. And I basically just kept failing forward, sometimes failing backwards, but it probably didn't have to be that hard if I had reached out to some folks who might have mentored me. Now I really subscribe to the practice of mentors as like a personal board of directors, where it's not necessarily a single mentor, but basically just a group of people that you regularly consult on for advice. And just like a board of directors, you want people who have diversity in their experience and their skill sets and how they relate to you. So, you want someone who's going, one member who's going to be empathetic, and one who will challenge you, and one who will help you think outside the box, and one who, is the role model that has the position that you aspire to. And so really by cultivating a team of people who will challenge and support and guide you, you're giving yourself the best opportunity for success and to be prepared to move when an opportunity arises. So I think, more than likely your mentors are probably already in your circle. You can also find coaches too. And there are professional coaches. I would recommend reaching out to Stacey and seeing who she knows. The St. Mary's Alumnae Network is a wonderful place filled with women who, understand where you're coming from and what's in your DNA. And so I think that would be a great place to reach out to mentors as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I always say, like, mentors too, they like see things in you that you don't see in yourself, right? And so, and And that can be incredibly valuable. And I love the idea of like the board of directors for your mentors too. I've heard that concept before, and I think it's critical too, because there's not going to be a one size fits all, and one person isn't going to be able to fill all those roles of, empathy, accountability, helping you to, draw out your strengths and your skill sets. And so sometimes you need, and oftentimes you need many people to help you through that. So yeah, so thank you, Gretchen. So Lexi, you're going to switch over to you. So could you, so you gave us the example of the story of being a special education teacher and just having that moment where you're like, thinking like this, I think I might be moving in a different direction here with, what I want to do at this time in my life. And could you talk a little bit about like some of that decision-making process? Like what were some of those key decisions that you were making or factors that might have been influencing your decision to head you on the track that you're on right now?
Yeah. So back when I was at St. Mary's, I actually started out as an education major, and I was going through my student teaching, and I had asked kind of like the one question that I feel like all teachers, might not really want to be asked, but I was going to be a new teacher and I wanted to know. So I asked, what was, do you ever regret going into teaching? What do you wish you could have done differently if you could go back? And because I just really fully wanted to know what I was getting myself into. And she told me that her biggest piece of advice for me, she told me she wasn't going to tell me anything she regretted, but that her biggest piece of advice was to find what lit my soul on fire and to follow it. And it's always easy to go back and get your teaching license online. So from there, that kind of stuck with me that, you can try different things. And if you've kind of decide that you want to go in a different direction, you can always come back to what you started at. There's no one saying that you can't go back to it, but there's, you can't always just try new things if you stay in one place. So that was kind of like my key takeaway from when I was figuring out what my career path was going to look like, was that no matter where I go in my career path, I can always go back to something. But if I don't ever try something, I'm never going to know if I like it. I'm never going to know if I find that light inside my soul that just gives me my drive to go to work. And so when I finally hit that point, teaching, I had taken enough, for lack of better words. And I had just gotten to that point where I was like, okay, it's time. I'm going to go try something else. I love my kids. I love this job. I can come back to it though. So that was when I really started looking, okay, well, where else do I want to go? What else do I have interests in? And when I first started figuring out what clubs I wanted to join at St. Mary's, I had a really great investment club advisor, and he helped me just pique little interests in little things and just run with them. And even, if they were little things, like just little things, he would help me. He would push me to run with whatever would pop into my mind and just get out there and try new things. So that was kind of my basis for wanting to transition into a whole different industry, was just to get out and try it. And if I don't like it, I don't have to stay there. I can go back. I can try something new. So that was really, those were my big things that helped me make my decisions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that too, and kind of speaking to that as well. Like, getting out there and trying things, is a great way to learn if you like it, if you don't like it, and I remember when working with you too, and talking about those transferability of skill sets. And so, going from teaching into financial planning, financial advising, that there's a lot of, and on the surface level, it looks like, what do these jobs, what do these careers have in common with each other? On the surface level, doesn't seem like a whole lot, because the roles are so different from each other. The day-to-day is so different from each other. But when you get down to like those transferable skill sets of education, teaching, working with clients, communication skills, relationship building skills, right? There's this transferability of skill sets. And so, and those skill sets, you'll continue to build on those, like in the financial services industry. So making that transition back into teaching, of course, there's always steps to make, to make transitions, but you can do that because the skill sets, transfer from industry to industry and from role to role. So, and I think that that's a real key thing to keep in mind, is that, if you're in a role or job, it can seem like you're kind of pigeonholed in it, but there's always transferable skill sets that can be drawn out from it. And also identifying like maybe where your gaps are too in skill sets and how to build on top of those. So yeah, so thank you for sharing, Lexi. So yeah, so Camille, so I'm gonna kick a question over to you. So if you had to give a pitch of why to get connected, reconnected to the college, to the alumni network, for help in making these career transitions, like what would that pitch be that you would have for people that might be thinking like, is this for me? Should I connect in? Should I, access services, resources, make those connections with alums? Like what would your pitch to them be for that?
My pitch is that it can only help you. It can't hurt. When I was in Chicago, I was totally in my comfort zone. I had all of my best friends from college. We would get together for coffee or lunch because we worked downtown. And when I decided to move to Ohio, I thought, oh boy, I better get busy. And the first place I thought of was St. Mary's. And so I was looking back at my email to prepare for tonight, and I saw that I had emailed the Career Crossings office. I looked at the website, and then within a day you got back to me. And you just have to be brave and take that step to reach out to someone, even if you don't know them. And you were so helpful. You scheduled a call with me, and you reviewed all of my documents and gave such helpful suggestions, and so quickly. It was such a quick turnaround, and you gave me new things to think about. So I'm big on using resources, and with all of my transitions and starting new jobs, it has required me to project confidence and just say, okay, I may not know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. And actually, moving to Chicago, I had no management experience, and I just took a class called Women in Organizations in my MBA program, and they talked about how women, I think it's only 60% of women apply for jobs that they are not qualified for, but men, it's like, if it's not 100%, it's really close. And I've always looked at the job descriptions and said, okay, yeah, I have most of these skills and I can explain the rest of it and I'll learn. And when I moved to Ohio, I was applying at Energizer. It's at an enormous R&D facility. So I would have been managing the preventative maintenance for 2 buildings, 250,000 square feet approximately. And I had no technical skills. And I remember talking with my future boss in the interview, and he said, I'm hesitant because you don't have these skills. And I said, I don't, but I'll learn them. And here's where I've proven myself in the past. And so anyway, it's they hired me, and the rest is history. And but you get out of it what you put into it. So when you're looking for a new job, use all of your resources. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, whether you're moving cities or not. Reach out to people. I know for me, it was confidential when I didn't tell anyone I was working with that I was leaving. So it was a surprise to everyone, and I had mixed emotions from them on that. But for me, it was important to keep my privacy and move jobs and have something secured. I am the breadwinner for my family, and I have to have something solid and stable. So that's part of why I feel that way. But anyway, use your resources. St. Mary's is a wonderful resource. And the fact that we have it for life is so amazing, because at different stages of your career, you may need different types of help. So it was so helpful to be able to tap into that when I was moving to this brand new city and state that where I had no one. And then I got involved with the club, both when I moved to Chicago and to Cleveland. I haven't been to as many Cleveland events because of COVID, but in Chicago, I ended up serving on the board for 2 years and meeting so many great friends. So there are more, there's the career office, there's the clubs, there are many resources.
Thank you, Camille. Yeah, so last question that we have, and then we're going to open it up for question from attendees. And feel free, attendees, if you have questions that are percolating for you, that you would love to have our panelists answer or for me to answer, feel free to type those into the chat, and we'll get to your questions as well. And so, this question's for all of the panelists. So we're going to end on a question for all of you as well. So, so you all have given wonderful, amazing advice for our attendees tonight. And I just wonder, like, if you had like one piece of advice that you would give to an alumna who maybe perhaps feels a little anxious, you know, making transitions and making moves and change is scary and overwhelming. And but for somebody that might be on the fence about making that change, making that move, maybe applying for another job, maybe even just the thought of putting a resume together when maybe you haven't put one together in 5 or 10 years or more, like what's that one piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's in that situation, is feeling really anxious about that, and to maybe to help them kind of move to the place where they feel they can take that next step?
I think if you're afraid or anxious or you have imposter syndrome or whatever, just do it anyway. It's so much worse to stay too long somewhere that's not a good fit, or a place where you're not growing, or a place that doesn't value you and isn't paying you what you should be paid. It's so much worse to stay somewhere that's not a good fit. So do the work to make yourself feel as comfortable as possible. Do the research, do, you know, whatever it takes to, you know, get to that place, leverage your mentors, whatever. But even if you're afraid, just do it anyways.
I recommend making a list. I'm big into lists. And when I was interviewing at Nestle, I was also interviewing at the Cleveland Clinic, and I got out a big piece of paper and I made the pros and cons. And at that point, I knew I wanted to leave my role, even though I hadn't been looking for a job, but I found the opportunity on LinkedIn. And for Nestle, actually, I think it was at the end of December of 2021. And then I said, no, I can't do it. And then 2 weeks later, I went back looking for it and I found the Cleveland Clinic job. But what I did was I made this list all the way from commute time to the culture at the companies and the benefits and all of it. I did my homework. But there have also been jobs where I was really anxious to leave, and I'm glad that I stayed a little bit longer. So write down how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way and what your vision is for the future. So what do you value? Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And how are you going to get there? And so you can make a plan. And if you're on the fence between a couple of jobs or where to go, weigh the pros and cons.
I think one thing for me that was really, really helpful when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, even when I first graduated college and right before I accepted my position at Schwab, was using one of the resources that Stacy has that helps you kind of just like narrow down the jobs that would fit best with you based on what you're looking for, your personality. I can't remember what the name of the test is, Stacy, but
yeah, I'll chime in real quick. So it's called Pathway U, and I can get that information, that link to that to Kara, and Kara can get that out to all that registered tonight. So if anybody's interested in taking it, and it's an assessment that measures interest, values, workplace preferences, and a little bit of personality as well. And tries to find alignment with different occupations and jobs that are out there, and kind of gives you a snapshot of what those roles look like what's the day-to-day, what's the salary, job outlook. It's also linked into our job boards too, so Handshake and Indeed. So if you're looking for roles that are like similar to this, like actual postings that are out there right now, it'll tap you into that. But it's a really great resource to help you, like Camille is saying, the know yourself is really important. I think that that's the part that sometimes that gets skipped over in this process, right, of discerning. And so knowing yourself is really important. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Lexi, because the Pathway U assessment, and it's open and available for anybody to take it too. It's free, it's online. Any, St. Mary's students, alums, prospective students, we give the assessment out freely to anybody that wants to take it. So, and then you can take it online, you get your results right away. So you can poke through your results and look through those. And, but then I'm also happy to meet one-on-one, virtually, in person, by phone, just to consult with you about your assessment results too. And what does this mean? And how can you use the information in making decisions? And so, but I'll hand it back over to Lexi. So, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is a really good resource, helpful resource. So.
No problem. Thank you. So yes, that was huge for me, deciding kind of where I wanted to go, and it being linked with different job descriptions and kind of like what the day-to-day looked like. Just sitting, and honestly, after dinner, I would just get on my laptop and just browse. And I would just see what was out there and see kind of what I imagined myself in, see if I could imagine myself in that day-to-day. And if I couldn't, then check it off the list next and just keep going and keep going. But I think my biggest piece of advice would be that to just try new things. I know that I guess I'm still super young, so I haven't been able to try a lot of new things yet, but I'm excited to. And I know that you might not always be able to come back to the same exact job, but there are so many variations of jobs that even if you want to go back to one, I'm sure that you could find something similar and, find where you're supposed to be.
So I think that we'll go ahead and open it up for chat and Q&A from the audience members. So audience members, if you have questions, feel free to type those into the chat. I don't see any questions coming through yet, but I know your brains are thinking about the questions, and I know some of you probably have some, again, burning questions. So feel free to type those into the chat, and we'll keep an eye on those. So, but we'll definitely make sure get access to the Pathway U. I also have a document that I share whenever I'm working with those that are job searching, that has information about how to connect into alums through the Alumni Resource Network, LinkedIn, the clubs, job search strategies, job search resources. And that's something that I can share with Kara as well to get out to all of the attendees. So if any of those resources, as we're talking about tapping into resources and utilizing them, if any of those resources look of interest to you, you'll have access to them right at your fingertips and can start using them. And I have some coaching documents on there too about, what do you say when you reach out to an alum, and what kinds of questions might you ask, and, how do you go, about that process of reaching out, and those communication points that you have with them. And happy to work with you one-on-one too on your own job search strategy, decision making, just, talking through, what your interests are, your skills, your strengths. And how do those align with the world of work, and also talking through, I work with a lot of alums too that might have some unique challenges when it comes to their job search too and their transitions, and so talking through not only making that action plan, but also what might be some of those obstacles and solutions to those obstacles, or how to work through those. And so and again, have worked with alums, some through, sometimes it's email communication back and forth. Sometimes it's meeting one-on-one, in person, virtually, telephone calls. Sometimes I meet with alums once, and then sometimes I meet with alums for a series of time or over the course of a couple of months too. So, so it truly is lifetime services, and there's no limit on reaching out and asking for guidance, assistance, and whatever it may be. So but I'll make sure that you have those resources and my contact information too. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. You can email me directly if you do need guidance from myself or from our office, and happy to talk with you and schedule time to meet with you as well if you would like to meet. So. But yeah, so far I don't see any questions coming into the chat, but feel free again, attendees, if you have a burning question that you want to ask the panelist or myself, feel free to ask questions. And but I can also like kick it back over to the panelists too, as we're waiting for questions to come in. If anybody, I know I asked specific questions of specific panelists, but if any panelists had like some additional thoughts that they'd like to add on, you know, anything that relates to mentors and what's been helpful to you, or just those decisions that you went through and that process that you went through making decisions and what was helpful to you in that. But feel free, if anybody has any other thoughts that they would like to share on those topics, you're welcome to do so. And if not, that's okay too. So yeah. Again, don't see any questions coming through, but we'll, like I said, we'll give it another second just in case anybody's typing in those questions. So. All right, so again, don't see any questions coming through. So maybe we'll move into like the closing. And Emily, before you come back on to, maybe this would be a good time to just panelist, you know, can you give just a brief synopsis of just those closing comments and thoughts on like what you'd like attendees to take away for tonight, and just like your final thoughts on the topics that we've been talking about tonight and what you'd like to leave everyone with. So I'll go ahead and have each of the panelists share just a little bit there.
I can go first. I guess I would say just go for it, but don't go for it alone. Go for it, but have a small army or team behind you supporting you, whether it be something as small as, you know, family and friends, which I guess aren't really that small, but or someone that's, you know, has a lot of resources like Stacy. Just ask for help.
Use your resources. I agree with asking for help, and take your development and your career into your own hands, and don't expect it to be handed to you or established for you. You have to make your own plan, and the people around you will support you. And join a St. Mary's Club if you can, near you. And yeah, don't be afraid to try new things. I take calculated risks, but also if you don't have all of the qualifications, you should still apply.
Yes, and yes to all of that. That's exactly right. Leverage your network, take the risks. I think don't be afraid to take yourself out of, maybe if you've been pigeonholed or you only see yourself one way, but you know, try to take risks, try to learn new things. There's so much knowledge out there that's just at our fingertips, whether it's connecting through people or taking online classes. You know, you can really take your career in any direction, and you don't have to just be one thing. So be as many things as you want, and just really know yourself and trust your gut, and knowing where you should be and when you should make the jump.
All right, again, thank you all panelists. Again, don't see any questions come through, but if you do have questions, because I know for myself sometimes too, my questions might pop up like after the session's over with, but if you do have questions, you can always reach out. You can reach out directly to me, you can reach out directly to Kara, Anybody, here at the college, reach out to us, and we're happy to answer your questions or help get you connected, to alums too. If Gretchen said something that just really struck a chord with you, or Camille or Lexi said something tonight, and you'd love to chat with them a little bit more, I'm sure they would be available to talk with you further. So, with that, I want to thank our panelists. Thank you all again. I mean, truly, amazing alums, and just wonderful insights and tips, and I appreciate all of you immensely. So I always say our alums are our best resource, and it's very true. Like, we have an amazing network of alumni through St. Mary's, and so it's something that you definitely want to be tapped into and connected into in many different ways. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Emily for closing remarks. And I also want to thank all of our attendees too for coming tonight. So thank you.
Well, thank you to Stacy and our panelists. I would say that the one thing, if I had to sum up what I'm taking away in one word, it's brave. And the bravery that all of you guys have shown in taking those risks and building your networks. And I took a little tidbit away from each of our panelists tonight. So I just want to say thank you. I know that our other attendees have taken their own pearls of wisdom away with them. So with that, we're going to wrap up tonight's session. So on behalf of the Alumnae Association Board of Directors, obviously I have to thank Gretchen, Camille, Lexi, Stacy for this wonderful talk. Our incredible Office of Alumni Relations, Kara and Grace, for all the work behind the scenes, and for all of you for taking the time to attend. So we appreciate the opportunity for all of us to learn and grow through the sharing of experiences like these. I do have 2 commercials. We don't have another SMC talk planned again until the fall. So this is our last one of this year, but we do have a spirituality hour planned for next week, May 3rd, 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's a discussion of the book Unruly Catholic Feminists. And we're happy to say that the authors will be joining our spirituality hour as well. So if that's something you're interested in, please consider joining us. The information again is on the St. Mary's Alumnae website for you to sign up. So we would really love for you to join us. And if you're attending Reunion this summer, Stacy and her team at Career Crossings will be available. So stop by the Career Crossings office to meet and say hi to Stacy and her team if you're going to be back on campus. Please also keep an eye out via email and social media for future programming from the Alumnae Association Board of Directors. And again, we will be back this fall with SMC Talks, and then our spirituality hour coming up again next week. So thank you all for attending, and I hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you all.